Okay. Here, hold on one sec. I'm going to bring that in a little bit. That's okay. At least my lighting's better this time.
Oh, there's Scott. Hi, Scott. Good to see you. So this is, I guess, our, third, Bren? Is this our third in the series so far?
I think so. Wow.
Yeah, so wow, we're at 3 already. So growing north, social media chat. We've done 3 on BLAB. We may move to Twitter one of these weeks. We'll see how that goes. But so just wanted to do an introduction. I'm Pam. Most people know me as Growing North. I've been on Twitter for probably somewhere between 1 and 2 years. I've lost track completely. It's a lot of fun. But I've been around for a while, and I've been growing for probably over a year now in a greenhouse, many years before that in the north. And I'll just drop a little link to my blog here in the messages, but you can always find me on growingnorth.ca. And so I write what I've learned there. You can subscribe, and whenever I finally do get around to writing a new post, I try often to get to new posts, but time runs away from me. When I get new posts up, you'll get a message that I've got a new post, and you can read it. And I'll let Bren do her introductions. She's a very fascinating lady.
Thanks. I feel like I'm running around in circles lately, but that's how December is, isn't it? It's crazy busy.
How do you start shopping?
I actually really haven't shopped, except for like ingredients for recipes and things like that to feed the family, right? But anyways, hi, I'm Bren. Live and I grow in Zone 5B, Ohio. And I'm brand new to growing in a geodesic biodome, which it's all positive so far. You know, there were a few times in the greenhouse I was a little worried because I previously had been growing in the greenhouse, just a conventional greenhouse. And I don't know if it's just from that experience that now I'm, you know, like a pro or something. It's really, I'm more confident maybe, but the dome is awesome. So I could go on and on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess I should also mention I'm Zone 3 2B, so I'm way up here, definitely in the dark period of the year. So yay for electric lighting.
Right.
Yes, definitely. So that's where I am, up in Canada, and definitely northern growing conditions for me. I get about 90, sometimes 100 frost-free days a year. So, and of those frost-free days, the ground is not always very warm at the beginning because the frost has just left, so the ground is still very cold for the plants. So very shortened season up here. So yay for greenhouses and biodome.
I have to ask you, like, how do you find out your average frost dates and things like that? I have no clue what mine is in Ohio. Is there like an official site or something?
I've basically gotten it from the Environment Canada websites.
Okay.
So I'm sure that there's got to be something just like they do the USDA maps, things like that, that would tell you.
Yeah.
So that's what my averages are.
Right.
This year I think it's going to be longer. We had a very, very delayed frost. I got almost an entire extra month of growing this year, which was great because the spring was incredibly cold, much colder than normal. So it kind of made up for it in the fall.
Yeah.
And I'm actually about 20 degrees normal, higher than normal this year right now. Normally I'm sitting at minus 20 Celsius right now. It's raining outside tonight. I have no idea what's going on with the weather this year.
Crazy?
It's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is good.
And it looks like it was 60 degrees in Boston today as well, Jay is telling us.
Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's insane. So I don't know what's going on. I'm a little bit worried for the hibernating animals because they're not hibernating, but their food is dead because the frost came. So I'm kind of hoping the cold comes soon so that they end up hibernating and they don't end up starving.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. I'm a little worried about them.
Yeah.
Scott says he has 102 frost-free days.
That's pretty cool information. I need to find that out. Huh. Googling it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what did we ever do without Google?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go into a quick topic overview for those who have joined us. Looks like we've got quite a crew on the BLAB tonight. just to kind of let you know what the BLAB tonight's going to go into and how things are. So essentially, Bren and I want to discuss what can you grow in the winter in the cold, because you can grow stuff, especially if you have a greenhouse or a biodome. But if you're in a slightly warmer climate than where I am, you can do cold frames. You can do low and high tunnels, things like that. But you're not going to grow the things you grow in the summer. They're just not going to go. So cold crops are important. They're a very, very important thing so that you can extend your seasons. It's important to learn what they are, and so you don't end up with a huge pile of failures trying to grow summer stuff in the winter. Mm-hmm. And same thing is so that you don't try to grow the winter things in the summer, because a cold crop is a cold crop. It's not a summer crop. You've probably all had that issue where your lettuce bolts right away. Or any kind of cold crop you try to grow in the middle of high heat summer, it bolts right away and goes to flower. So that's again, you have to understand your cold crop. And there are issues growing in the winter. Mm-hmm. As obviously anyone else who's in the north knows, it's very dark. Unless you're going to supplement your light, temperature is one of your problems. Your biggest issue is actually light. So those are the problems that you're going over. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss tonight, is what is a cold crop, what can you grow, types of them, any kind of issues, things you need to think about, and essentially, how you overcome those issues. So I don't know, Bren, did you want to talk about what conditions to expect in cold temperature, or what you've been noticing so far?
Well, I mean, it's totally unpredictable. I mean, a pattern we've been having here in Ohio for the past 3 years. Of course, it was the years that I first tried. I had my little 4x4 raised beds, and so we put covers over it just with a basic plastic, and it was going really well. I was a little late at starting carrot seeds in there before it got too cold for them to grow. This was last year, and we had the weirdest winter. It's like it went from a 50-degree day to a day in the 20s, which the plastic did okay, but no. At night, it basically killed everything. So, yeah, everything kind of died in there except for the kale that was already living, and the Swiss chard got real pretty. I think chard is just so pretty when it gets a little too cold, right? Yeah, so it's kind of, one thing that's kind of helped me, I never think of any of the vegetables growing as being a failure, because, I've brought many every year. For the past 6 years, 7 years in the greenhouse, I would bring favorite tomatoes into my greenhouse, knowing darn well, they're not going to survive probably, but I did it anyways, and it was just, I don't know, it's interesting to watch the habits of the different varieties, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I probably went off topic there, didn't I?
No, not at all. It's all fine. This is a BLAB. We get to BLAB. Yeah. I love it. But yeah, exactly like you mentioned, the conditions you expect are going to be more extreme. Mm-hmm. And as you're if people have heard Persephone period, it's the period of year that you get less than 10 hours of sunlight a day. Differs in different areas. Obviously, my Persephone period is quite long. It's about a third of the year. It's almost 4 months long. It's kind of crazy. And so obviously down where you are, you get a little bit longer period of sun, and your Persephone is a little bit shorter. And if you go further north than me, obviously their Persephone is crazy, insane. They barely have any sun. So that's a condition you're going to expect in the winter period in the northern hemisphere. Obviously it flips over in the southern hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So that would be a little different again. But conditions you're going to expect: cool temperature, low light. You're going to expect microclimates. Bren and I have discussed a little bit of this on our last 2 blabs, where you have your soil layer and you've got your plants that are just about here, kind of hovering above the ground if you're planting in the ground. And I strongly suggest you plant in the ground in a winter greenhouse, because it gets all that radiant heat from the earth coming up, a little bit of geothermal. And then you have your air up here, which is going to be a different temperature again. The areas you're concerned about is where the plants are. So it's interesting to measure the temperatures above, and if you want to have some hanging baskets, then it's very important to measure that. But if you are planting actually in the ground, things like that, you want a thermostat where the plants are. And the temperatures you need to maintain are not high. You only need to be about 5 Celsius. So I'm not sure if someone can calculate what that is in Fahrenheit. Me being, you know, all the way up here in Canuck land, I don't process Fahrenheit very well. So it's definitely, it's cold. It's just hovering above freezing. That's about all you really need in your microclimate, and it can be it can be freezing above the plants. That's not as much of a concern. Too much of a difference, you're going to end up with frost. Some plants are okay with that. Kale, cabbages, a lot of cold crops don't care so much, but things that are very soft like lettuces do care. They're good in a cool temperature, but they're not good with a frost. So those are the temperatures and light you're going to expect is low light, low temperature, microclimates, and you're also going to expect really, really high humidity. My winter greenhouse, 41. Thank you, Scott. So 5 Celsius is about 41. So you want to stay at around 40 to keep that good. Oh, and this Fahrenheit to Celsius converter is going to be very useful for me. I'm going to have to keep that. I think I'll have to use that every single blab. Because my Canuck speak isn't always translated very well.
That's what we need. We need somebody to make like a widget that has, you know, for your blog, that has the 2 conversions. See?
Yeah, I think they exist already. I haven't put one up there. I really should.
That's a great link. Thank you.
So yeah, Jay shared that for anyone who can see the little notes and the messages coming up the side of the screen on computer. You can go there, and if I throw out a term that you don't understand for Fahrenheit, convert it. And same goes for Bren, for all our Canadian people joining in. If Bren starts talking in these really weird Fahrenheit values, I don't know, then we can convert it over to Celsius.
Just adds to the rest of my randomness, right?
We love you, Bren. I'll give you props for that. Anytime someone says something you love, there we go.
Awesome.
Click right on there and give them props.
All right.
So yeah, you're going to end up with high humidity. My greenhouse that I grow in, it sits around 80 to 90% humidity in the evenings. It's gone up as high as 98, 99% humidity. So in the evenings, I'm actually thinking I might drop a really small little dehumidifier, super small, so I'm not going to take away too much humidity from the plants because they kind of like it. And it transfers the temperature really, really well because moisture transfers temperature well. But a little bit of that, or else I'm ending up with too much mold problem because you will, in that microclimate right against the soil, you'll get a little bit more mold growing. So those are the conditions: cold temperature, low light, and high humidity.
Okay. So if you're tuning in tonight, I just want to remind you in the comment section, you can do a slash and a Q. Actually, if you hit that little slash mark, it used to tell you on there, yeah, right at the top, you can hit the top with the, is that a slash? What do you call that? The little.
I like the term slash. Slash works.
Cool. And a Q, and then your question will come right up. And that's.
Yeah, and I can actually pop it onto the screen for everyone to view.
Perfect. And actually, I have a question for you, Pam, with your humidity. Now, so on my thermometer that I have out in the greenhouse, or the dome right now, it's got the humidity on there along with, you know, the regular reading. Is there a way, like, do you have a way to track that at night? Do you have something digital that you're using, or?
I do, actually. I have a system that is wireless.
Nice.
And it has two monitors, actually, that I can read it on. And one of those sits inside the garage, which is my pass-through area, and one of them sits in the house. So when it's minus 40, I don't have to pop out to the garage to read my temperatures. And I actually have four hygrometers that read in. So they measure temperature and humidity where they're sitting. So I get both readings from each location. One sits outside, so that I can see what the actual average outside temperature is when I'm reading the inside. One sits at the soil level at the front window, so I can see what that microclimate right against the cold is. One of them sits really, really high in the top of the greenhouse, so I can see what my top is, and one of them sits kind of mid-range. And my actual thermostat sits right at the plant, so that even if those temperature readings are a little bit off, my thermostat's going to cut in when it hits around 40 and keeps it at that temperature. See, look, I did it. Fahrenheit.
Yeah, there. Good job. I'm having a hard time typing tonight. Sorry. Kirsten came on. It's been a long day.
It's okay. I'm not going to judge you on your typing. You should see mine. My web design team laughs at me all the time because I'm always back to it's just it's a mess. It's a mess.
Right. Kristen.
The other little thing.
She's up in Canada as well. Kristen came on. Or Kristen. It's Kristen. She has a greenhouse, but I don't think she uses it during the winter. So maybe we can inspire her to get out there.
Oh, Kristen, you need to grow in the winter.
Yeah.
If nothing else, when you're having an absolutely terrible day, you can grab that bottle of wine or that cup of tea and wander into your greenhouse and sit there and like smell summer smells in January. If nothing else, it's like the greenhouse is worth it just to go in there and go, oh,
yeah,
okay, and that feels better.
It's a nice vacation.
We have a question here. It wasn't done with the slash, but Happy Dance is asking, have you looked into Wi-Fi controllers and sensors to monitor all of it? And I have. I've actually looked into ones that I'd be able to check from my phone wherever I am. So they'd link into the Wi-Fi of the house, and then I'd be able to check into a server kind of on my in my house. But what I decided to do was just leave it as is for now, because the cost was a little bit too high for what I wanted to do. So they do exist and they're great. I haven't invested in one yet. That would be one of my little luxuries that I'd love to do. Raspberry Pi application. Okay, I'll have to look into that for an open source.
Yeah. Thank you.
One other thing I wanted to quickly remind people about is if you know other people who'd like to follow in on this blab as we get going into more of the topics, the actual plants that we're growing, at the side or on your phone, there's a little menu for Tell a Little Bird or Tweet It, and also for Facebook. So please click on that. Let other people know that the blab's going on. Bring them in, and hopefully they'll be able to join in and maybe hear what we're talking about.
Sounds fun. Yeah, one problem I'm having right now is we have a digital one that it's not working by Wi-Fi though. It's just, how does that work? Electricity, right? It just it's just not Wi-Fi. My husband's a tech end of that stuff, but because we put the dome so far out, which was my fault, but it's not a fault. I love it out there. The sensor's not picking up. So eventually I hope to get a Wi-Fi. So I appreciate that that comment there with that app. So yeah.
Oh, and Scott says he's growing kale, arugula, beets, carrots, Swiss chard, romaine lettuce, spinach, and parsley.
Nice.
So lots of stuff going on. And I believe Scott has a dome as well, a biodome. So yeah, lettuce is definitely one of those things you can grow. Do you have lettuce going, Bren?
Yes. Yes, it's growing nice and slow.
Exactly.
Is it normal?
It's you know what, it's completely normal. What you're going to notice, you'll probably have a little bit more growth than I will because I have even less sun. Lettuce, you kind of have to start early, kind of like September, so that it gets to a certain size before Persephone sits in.
Okay.
Once Persephone sits in, lettuces, so your romaine and your head lettuce, and even things like spinach and kale are going to go into kind of like a stasis. They're not dormant, they're alive, they're growing, but they just don't put in any size. They just don't have enough light to do that. So if you can start them a little bit earlier, then you can get them to a certain size, and then you'll still be able to harvest them. They'll go into a bit of a stasis period. And then once the days start elongating, obviously past, in about 3 weeks, they start getting longer. Not that I'm counting.
Yeah. 3 weeks.
So yeah, in about 3 weeks.
With the warm weather we've been having though, I mean, like, it was weird. Like, we started out, you know, the dome was up in mid-October-ish. And so by the time I got things moved in there, we had a week or two, it was pretty warm. And then all of a sudden we get this really cold spell, right? And that slows things down. But now it's warm back up. I actually, most of my kale, I have new shoots coming off of it, or new leaves, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And yeah, the lettuce is finally taking off. one of my problems was I'm like a seed hoarder, and I had packages that they were old. They were probably 5, 6 years old. And I think they were too old. They didn't start. So, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it could also be that the soil temperature itself was a little bit lower than they wanted for germination.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Because that's one thing I found. If you're going to do microgreens, you can do microgreens in the spring period in your winter greenhouse. So when it starts getting longer days, but to sprout them, you need to add a little bit of a heat mat underneath them to sprout them, and then they're okay.
Oh, okay.
But they won't sprout very well at all unless you add a little bit of heat to the root bed initially. So Scott has asked here a little bit ago, actually, how long are you able to grow greens in zone 3-2? I grow them all year long in my winter greenhouse. I don't have a dead period.
And that's because you understand the timing on that, right? I mean, you know when it's going to be a time where your seeds won't start very well, so you start them early, maybe like that.
Some of them, yeah. Some of them I will sprout indoors and then move them out. Some of them I'll add a little bit of a heat to. I try to choose ones I don't have to do that with because I'm lazy. I don't want to add. I don't want to add the extra work. I want to just put my seeds in and let them grow. Yeah. So, and there are some actually that won't sprout in warm temperatures. Things like vitmash. I'll see if I can discuss that a little bit. It's also called corn salad. For Celsius, I'm not sure what that's going to be in Fahrenheit. I'll have to use that little link that Jay gave me. About 25 Celsius or lower, then they will germinate. If that soil is any warmer, they just won't germinate because they're definitely a cold crop. They just, any kind of heat, and it's too damaging for the plant, so the seed knows, nope, going to be too warm, don't grow. And so I can plant them early in the greenhouse, and they're just going to sit in the soil until it gets later in the season and that soil temperature drops, and then all of a sudden they start sprouting. So I kind of got a little dejected the first year I put them in and went, oh, nothing's coming up. And then later in the season, all of a sudden they started coming up, and so I did a little bit of research on them and found that that's one of the seeds that it protects the plant from heat that the plant can't actually handle. And so it won't sprout until the temperatures drop far enough in the soil.
I love that when that happens, because usually what I do is, oh shoot, there's nothing coming up there. So I'll stick something else in that I know will work. And so that comes up. And then the next thing you know, in a few weeks, the other thing starts coming up.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and then you thin it out to whatever's really strong, and you enjoy it, right? Yeah. Especially if one of them's a really fast grower and one of them's a slow grower, you kind of get to get two crops out of the same section.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do that on purpose too. I'll plant one that's really slow and one that's really quick in the same spot.
There you go. So Scott was curious if you're using only passive heat in your greenhouse.
Technically, I'm using a mix. And this is the interesting thing about my greenhouse is just like the biodomes that you and Scott have that are mainly passive, but I know that you've dropped some backup heaters in there. I have the solar heat come in, the passive solar heats the air, and I actually have a heat sink underneath that's all stone. And so what happens is I have basically duct booster fans. I have some piping that runs in the high area of the greenhouse and runs it right down into the bottom. And then it kind of does, like these little fingers, and they just kind of cross in underneath. So it's all pipes underneath in the stones. And the air is pushed down there. It heats everything up. And when it gets cooler, obviously the heat boosters shut down, and that rises throughout the evening. And if the little microclimate, because I remember my thermostat is right where the plants are, I don't have it higher up. So if the microclimate starts dropping below 40 Fahrenheit, then I have a backup heater that will kick in. So I don't put my thermostat next to the window because that's going to be too cold. That's another microclimate. It's definitely colder at the window.
Right.
And I put it right at the plants, a little bit more towards the middle, but not right in the very middle, because the very middle is always warm enough. So kind of halfway towards the window, and when that hits 40, then my little backup heater will kick in. This November is kicked in more often because this November I think I had about 3 days of sun. Problem with the passive solar greenhouse, if you don't have the solar, you don't have any passive solar.
Yeah.
So that is a concern, and I noticed, Bren, you took the same thing that the same idea, which is great to see the water ballast.
Yeah.
Bren has a much larger water ballast than I do, which is going to work even better for her. She's using these 45-gallon drums, and then the passive solar heats that, and then it slowly releases that heat through the evening just from the water, because water holds heat really, really, really well. Probably why you always feel those nice cool ocean breezes in the middle of summer. Yeah. So the water maintains temperature, doesn't fluctuate very quickly, so it's holding temperature, releasing it in the evening in your greenhouse. And I have some, but not the same volume of water. So I use that as a heat sink as well along my back wall.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy today because I need to get, what I'm going to have to do is when I check my weather during the day, I think I'm going to have to do a screen grab, because I don't know if anybody knows an app that will show you like the history of the day, like the weather, like how long the sun was out. I mean, is there such a thing? I wonder if there is. But anyways, the reason I bring that up is the last time I looked, when the sun was out for a little bit this morning, it was mostly cloudy all day, and the high that I caught was only about 56, which, you know, that's great for Ohio in December 10th. When I went into the greenhouse, or to the dome tonight, sorry, I was quite surprised to find as the sun had just set, the temperature was 63 in there, which is kind of crazy because it didn't get that warm outside and the sun was hardly out. So apparently the water
heats up really quickly.
Yeah. So
yeah, because cool. I noticed for mine, even the slight little bit of raised sun, and it's heating right up. And you use a solar wrap, which kind of deflects all three kinds of light, diffuse, reflected, all of that. Yeah. And I use a triple wall polycarbonate for a little bit of insulating factor, and also to protect against the winds and hail and things like that. So I made that choice because I'm not using the nice little triangle sections for like a geodesic dome. Mine is just a one big solid flat panel. Right. So I wanted the extra strength and the extra insulating factor of having the multiple walls. Mm-hmm. So that was my choice in that. But they're both great to use. Mm-hmm. And Scott is also using 55-gallon drums on his north wall.
Nice. Yeah.
And he's only been in the low 20s so far, so that's good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and list out a couple other things. I think, Bren, you had some pictures, and I know I dropped some other pictures in a folder. I'll see if I can get those onto Twitter later on to just continue this. But I know Scott was growing arugula, and Bren grows arugula, and so do I. This is kind of like a winner for.
I just popped my radishes up.
Oh, good. So if anyone's getting the links, pop onto there and take a peek at the pictures.
There's to my understanding so far, there's no way of putting a photo in the comment section. And
I've looked for it. I haven't found it yet.
And there's no way of doing like a screen share. I mean, you could do a screen share, but it looks really bad. So I've just kind of been following the tech people during the day and finding out, what we can do. Right? So.
Yeah, I'm thinking the best is going to be that I'll try to post some actual pictures to Twitter as well. So I'll do that after, just kind of identify what the things are, because some of the Asian greens I'll discuss are not very common, at least that I'm familiar with. So people might want to take a look at what they look like. They're really tasty, and they grow really great in the cold winter greenhouses with low light. But they're just not a common vegetable.
So I have a question about my radishes. I've been growing them for quite a few years, and is it for some weird reason the varieties that I have? I don't know if it's because I didn't. So I didn't separate them, or, what do you call that when you thin them? I didn't thin them. And so, but when I'm noticing it's well past the 30 days, right? The green looks awesome. In fact, the green tastes really good. But I really don't have very many actual radishes forming. Is that because I didn't thin them?
Possibly. The non-thinning will affect it because they grow to the space they're given. So if they feel crowded, they're not going to grow the root as much. And the other thing is winter radishes in your greenhouse take longer to grow than they do in the summer.
Okay.
Okay, because a plant needs to take in energy to produce the cells to produce the growth. And if there's not very much sun coming in, it's only getting a short period of time during the day where it can do this. And it's also a low energy light because it's so much lower on the horizon. And so it's just not getting the energy during the day to put into and actually bulk out that root to actually make a nice root.
Okay.
So thin them out, give them space so they're not competing for the nutrient in the soil, and so they have root for that, or room for that root to actually expand, and then just be patient. Okay.
Yeah,
they take, I'd say, at least twice as long because they're getting half the light.
Okay. Well, and I knew better. I knew to thin them, but I was just so excited to have so much plush green in that raised bed that I was like, oh, I like the green, so we'll leave it.
Well, eat them as microgreens, and that's what I'm saying. Like winter greenhouses, just don't expect to eat your summer crops. I mean, if radish greens are growing really great, eat the radish greens.
So I got a bone to pick here with Scott. Got to grow it. He doesn't like arugula.
Oh, good.
Arugula is awesome. It's like peppery. You should saute it a little and put it with your steak. It's really good.
Or you know what's really, really great? Do a sweet salad with it. Take baby arugula, throw it down, and put like a sweet what is that? Poppy seed dressing on it, or like a strawberry dressing, and then caramelize a pear or saute a pear, and drop that on top with like a candied nut or something on top of arugula, and then you got that peppered arugula, and you got that really nice sweet sauteed or poached pear, and it's just so good. Especially when you get the baby arugula in the middle of winter right out of your greenhouse.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm okay with it.
I don't know why people react negatively, because maybe they're expecting lettuce, and arugula is not lettuce; it's an herb.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're expecting bland, which is why I don't like the stuff in the grocery stores. Period.
Yeah.
Is because everything in the grocery stores is bland, and if all you've ever had is bland, then you're not going to like arugula.
Right.
But arugula is wonderful. It adds that nice nip to everything, and it's not super spicy. Some are. Yeah, some arugulas are very spicy. I tried one called a dragon tongue.
Ooh.
And it does not grow fast at all. It's a wild type. It's a wild type arugula. And I'm not growing it again this year just because I wanted more bulk.
Okay.
But it's this neatest thing. It's like this tiny little stringy leaf that looks like these miniature elongated oak leaves. And they get these little red veins in them. They're really, really, really pretty, but they're super peppery. Super, super peppery. It just wasn't what I was looking for. But arugula as a general thing is great. So, and they took so long to grow, like probably because it is a wild type arugula versus one of the domesticated varieties, that it was very, very slow growing, very tiny.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
But arugula is definitely one thing. I think, Bren, did you have a picture of arugula here? Let me just grab that and pop it in. Yeah.
It's growing really quick. Now I have it closest to it's in a container, which sits about 30 inches off the ground, big black container filled with soil. And it's pretty close to it's right up against the south wall of my dome, which is all solar wrap all the way down. So I think that might have something to do with it. And I still have tomatoes, one tomato plant and a pepper plant that look great in kind of that same area, sitting up higher like that. Yeah. Whereas opposed to I have a broccoli that's over, not so much on the south facing wall, growing in the ground, and it's not doing real well. I can tell it kind of got zapped from the cold or something, but I don't know. It's fun.
I'm going to see if I can get a picture here of a mix of greens. I'm going to try sharing it as a Dropbox link. I'm not sure if people are going to be able to do it. So give it a click and let me know if you can see this.
Okay. Oh, that's a great chart. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Let's see.
So let me know if that pops up. Because I can kind of walk you through some of these greens, and these are greens that you could expect to grow in a winter cold greenhouse.
That's beautiful. Bok choy and radishes, all that.
Yeah, like in the top white calendar there is baby arugula, and you can see like it's plentiful. It grows really, really well and really easy. So I would suggest anybody who just wants to see if they could grow in the cold, grow that. Arugula doesn't seem to care about the low light, because I don't add supplemental light. If there's no light, there's no light. They deal with it.
Yeah.
So you can add supplemental light if you want things to grow faster, but I don't. And then in the bottom left corner, you can see there, that's actually Tokyo bacana. That is an Asian cabbage.
Okay.
So instead of like a pak choi or a Napa cabbage, you know, like those nice tight or Asian cabbage heads, Chinese cabbage, it's a loose leaf. So it looks like a lettuce, but it is a cabbage. And it's a very, very strong performer. It does not care about that, about the low light. It doesn't care about the cold temperatures. And the stems are very, very juicy. They're really good, but it's a cabbage flavor.
Nice.
So don't get surprised and take a bite and expect that you're eating a lettuce. You're eating a cabbage. It really is a good performer. So if you don't like being discouraged with things that are tricky, I definitely say try a Tokyo bacana. And then you can see there I've got some white icicle radishes, and some different Easter egg ones, dark ones, pink ones.
Okay.
And then to the right top there is what is a pak choi. It's called joy choi. It actually gets much bigger, so I'll post a link to what it actually matures into. So that's the baby ones there.
Sure.
And you can eat the baby ones.
Yeah.
Very, very juicy. And then at the bottom you can see a very small pak choi. And it's a my king choi. And it grows at that size, really, really nice to individually stir fry or individually just steam and put next to fish or chickens or things like that. So those are the Asian greens, and they're just amazing performers. If you're not trying them, I would suggest try them and see if there's some that you like better than the others. Let me see.
Before you had your greenhouse, are these a lot of things that you grew like in raised beds?
No, because our summer temperatures here are actually warm.
Okay.
And these are a cold crop.
Okay.
So no, I did not grow them, but the things that I grow in my raised beds, I can't really grow well in the winter. Okay. Radishes, yes. Mm-hmm. Arugula, yes, but only in the spring. By summer it bolts and it goes to seed. So no, I wasn't growing them, but I'm very, very happy. I did some research into what can I grow. Mm-hmm. I grabbed about 30 different varieties of seeds and spread them out to see what was going to do well, and just took my chances. So let me I've got another, let's see if I can find Dropbox link here. So this is actually, this is some more my king choi. And this is how you spell it, that is growing. Oh, and I see Scott's question here. The low temperature in my greenhouse is 40, sometimes a little bit less than that, but not very often. It goes below 40.
That goes. See, if you use the little Q in the slash, it's kind of cool actually. Do you see how fancy your question just got, Scott?
Yeah, I can bring that up onto the screen, and the nice thing is in the replay, then the questions show, because the sidebar doesn't show in the replay, which is the really unfortunate thing. But if you do ask a question with the /Q, we can pop it up here and it pops in the replay. So the low temp, like I said, is about 40 Fahrenheit. Sometimes it drops a little bit lower than that, but it never hits freezing.
Nice. That's great. Yeah.
I'm just going to see.
With these mild nights we're having, I might actually sneak out in the middle of the night and see what my temperature is out there until I get a fancy digital one. But.
And if you're wondering what the joy choi, the white-stemmed pak choi would grow into, this is a mature joy choi. They're quite large. Nice. They're very, very large choi plants, and they're very tasty.
So how
amazing.
What do you, okay, do you just chop it up and throw it in your stir fry, or do you wrap things with it?
I don't. The stems are actually very, very fleshy, very, very juicy, fleshy stems. Okay. So I actually chop the stem into sections, and then I'll break up the leaf. And so I'll saute the stem lightly with garlic and oil, or garlic and butter, I should say. I'm not much of an oil person. Butter, love butter.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of garlic in that, and not much salt, not much pepper. And then I'll just throw the leaf portion in to wilt it. And I might add, I grow hot-dried turnip, which is another Asian turnip. You can eat the leaf as well as the ball, and the ball only gets about that big, so it looks like a radish. Really buttery, really sweet. They grow perfectly well in the greenhouse over winter. And there's a red version of that as well, so they're quite fancy, pretty looking. And I might throw a little bit of those on top of it after, just when I'm wilting the greens, just to heat them. And maybe if I have a little bit of kerneled corn left over or something, throw that in so it's a little bit sweet, and it's a really, really nice stir fry. Really nice crunch and juicy texture out of the stems.
You need to Instagram that next time you make that. That sounds really good.
I'll just see if I can have a picture of it. You know what? If you want to blab for a little bit, Bren, I'll take a look and see what I have as a picture.
Okay. I'm usually good at blabbing.
Yeah, you've got that down pat. You can carry it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, I have questions though.
Okay, I can talk and look.
And please, anybody else out there, help me out. Ask some questions. So I'm not the only one. I have like a million questions. So like some of these seeds that you just mentioned, well, now we're December 10th-ish, right? Less sun during the day for now, right? Is it too late to start seeds like radishes? Or
nope.
Just do it?
You just harvest them later.
Okay.
Go right ahead and start them. That's a good plan, Bren, is to stagger them so that you don't end up with one harvest of them, because you're so limited in what you can grow in the winter. There is a number of things you can grow, but it is limited. That you want to stagger your crops if you can, so that you get to harvest sequentially throughout the season, so you don't end up with like a huge pile of bounty, and then you're going back to the store and going, I hate this stuff.
Right.
So if you can stagger your growing, I highly suggest that. Leave half your greenhouse unplanted, and then just keep staggering new plantings of seeds throughout the late winter and early spring, and then by the time you're growing your summer crops, you should be able to keep eating.
Very cool.
I actually found a picture of a poached pear arugula salad. So while I'm looking for the other one, I'll post this for you.
Very cool.
Because, some people who don't like arugula might like the idea of this.
Right.
Not that I've heard people who don't like it.
I have a hard time getting rid of or throwing my plants into the compost pile at the end of the season. Oh,
really?
I cleaned out my window boxes, and those are cool hardy plants that are in there, or were in there for autumn. I had some mums, which are perennials in my area, right? And I have these little dwarf strawberry variety. It's like a fairy garden variety. The berries only get they're so tiny. They're like, oh my god.
Are they an alpine strawberry?
No, I don't think so. They're red and they're really thin. They were actually labeled fairy garden strawberries. So they're real tiny, but they're so sweet. They pack a lot of flavor. And what else survived in there? I actually had some basil tucked behind in that window box that made it all the way through till December 5th. So I just moved all that into the greenhouse or into the dome, and packed some straw around it, cuddle them all in, and they're doing great. I mean, they're living. I don't know if they'll produce anything as we head into winter eventually here, but yeah. So that's kind of my habit. When I first got a greenhouse, if anybody's on here and you're thinking about getting a greenhouse or a dome or something that you can continue growing in, when I first got mine, my experience was growing in a garden center. And so I was used to, we would winter over annuals and things like that, just so they would survive as opposed to having them outside, right? So my things were all in containers and whatnot, yeah. Not like so you've always grown food in yours, right, Pam?
Yes. The flowers I have are only there. They're only there for companionship for the vegetables. So I'll grow marigolds, and I'll grow a number of other flowers like alyssum and items like that, because they either drive away pests or they attract beneficials. Nice. And so I will grow flowers, but I don't care about them. I do have perennials because they're pretty, but honestly, I don't spend any time on them. They're on their own. Yeah. Very rude of me. Probably why the roses don't survive for me.
Oh, out in the garden.
Yeah. It's probably why the roses don't survive.
We all grow different. We all have our different reasons for wanting to.
Oh, and Happy Dance Farms actually points out something which I was not mentioning, but that they are edible flowers, and I do grow a lot of edible. I'll grow nasturtiums because they're edible, and bachelor buttons because they're edible, and I will also eat pea flowers and bean flowers as they're growing because they're perfectly edible. Especially late fall when I know that they're not going to develop into the plant. They don't have enough time anymore. I'll just start pulling the flowers off and eating them. And I definitely grow a number of edible flowers, and I'm really happy that someone pointed that out because I normally don't discuss it too much. But I do also try to plant edible flowers because they're very pretty on top of a salad. If you take a bunch of nasturtium blooms and bachelor button, and even the pea and bean flowers, if you get the nice purple pole beans, you get these gorgeous violet flowers. Nice. And I throw them on top of the salad as a garnish when I serve it, and they're perfectly edible and sweet.
Yeah. Nice. Speaking of nasturtium, I put some seeds in a few weeks ago. I'm not expecting much, if anything, because it's cooler in the dome, right? But they're up today. I noticed they're popping up, my nasturtium. We'll see if they survive. I think I'm going to put some mulch or something around them because they're in a container just to see what happens. I love them. They're yum. They're kind of like the flower's got a peppery taste to it. Or most of the ones that I grow do anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are very strong and some of them are not. And you can grow them in the greenhouse. And actually, that's another thing. A lot of people view peas as a spring crop or a summer crop, and they are, but only in cooler areas and only during either late fall or early spring, because middle of summer in many areas, not for me, it doesn't matter, but in many areas peas can't grow in the heat. But if you put them in your greenhouse, they might not have enough sun to develop a pod. I'm trying to experiment with that this year to see if they do develop a pod, but perfectly good as pea shoots. Plant them in and clip them off, and then let them grow back up again. And so you can have peas in your winter cold weather, barely above freezing greenhouse or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for mine to come up. Mine are still not coming up. I wonder if I need to move them closer. They're further away from the south wall, so I don't know if maybe, I don't know.
Grab a handful of them out of the ground, see if the seed is still good, if it hasn't gone mushy or something, and just move them and see what happens.
That's a good idea. They're big enough.
Yeah, if the seed hasn't gone mushy, just move them.
Cool. Oh, you know what? I want to ask you too. Like, I'm asking you all the questions. Sorry.
You know, that's okay. Put it with a slash, Bren. Make it look pretty.
Oh, okay. Okay, no. It would take me too long to type.
That's okay. I'm bugging you.
So someone gave me they had a garlic seed extra, so they gave it to me. Now I had already put a garlic. Is it called a seed? It's a garlic, but it's, you break it apart and you plant it. It's a seed, right? Okay.
It's a bulb, but yeah.
Okay. It's kind of confusing because I also cook with them, just not this one. I don't know. Anyways, so I had already planted the garlic that I had a good month ago, maybe 2 months ago. And someone just a week ago gave me another clove or bulb. What do you think would happen if I planted that and I don't?
It would probably come up. Plant it somewhere where it's going to be a very, very stable temperature.
Okay.
Because the bulbs don't like warm. Garlic likes a cold area.
Oh.
They like a well-drained soil.
Okay.
And you don't want it somewhere where you're going to be walking too much either.
Right.
They develop quite an intensive root system. So you want the roots there, which is why when we plant our fall garlic up here, you try to plant it about a month before the frost so that they can get some roots established before spring.
Right.
But I've planted it with a pickaxe before, literally. When the frosts have come too early and the ground has started to freeze, I've actually pickaxed and dropped it in, and it's fine.
Okay.
But it doesn't like heat. So plant it, try. I mean, that's the fun thing. That's the fun thing. You've got a biodome, and it's gardening, and you get to play. Try it. See what happens. Write a blog about it. Tell us.
Okay.
Yeah, like don't ever be scared to just try it. If you're like, oh, I wonder what happens, just do it.
Just do it, then you'll find out.
That's what I do. It's like, oh, I wonder what happened. Like, oh, well, that failed. Or I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Or I'm like, oh, well, why didn't the wheat come up? Well, now the wheat mush is coming up. Does it just take a really long germination time? But no, it was the soil temperature.
Okay.
Right? And in the summer, I have to choose corn that has a very cold germination temperature because my soil is so cold in the spring. Most corn is too long of a growth season. Right. So I need very, very short season corn that germinates in cold temperature. Okay. So I'm limited on the corn varieties I can grow here in the summer as well.
Yeah.
None of those nice big cobs of corn. That just doesn't happen for me.
Right.
Now you said that you're doing herbs as well, Bren. So herbs is something you can do.
I shared another picture. I just love that picture.
Okay, which one's this?
I took it tonight. It's kind of messy, but that's kind of like how I grow. I kind of stuck a bunch of stuff in.
That works. So yeah. I'm like this looking at the computer trying to see the picture.
So like, I mean, it's not the best quality. It's just with my little phone, but it just gave you an idea of all the, I mean, it's just kind of hodgepodgey, but I mean, to the left are new shoots of, closest to my boot on the left, and the biggest container there is Swiss chard coming up. It's taken its time. It's going nice and slow. But then the plant just above that is parsley. And that was a huge clump of parsley I brought in for my raised bed. I actually harvested it all the way back. And then all that came out between the first couple of weeks in November. It just went crazy again. And so those in front of my boots there, the reddish, obviously, is Swiss chard, right? Now that Swiss chard, I didn't start it. Actually, my little helper did, my 4-year-old niece. She was 3 at the time. And we started that way back in early April in my raised bed it had a cover over it, right? And so the root on that is huge. And I just basically harvest most of it, cut it back, and move those big roots in. And those new shoots that are coming up, they're really yummy.
I love baby Swiss chard. It's not as leathery. It's very, very tender. It's sweet. It's juicy. Yeah. You can put it in salads. Doesn't have that sharp flavor yet. The baby stuff. Oh, it's so nice.
So, that was a question of mine too. I always thought, people who live in the warmer climates who can grow pretty much all year round, especially things like that, like Swiss chard and whatnot, and kale. Is there ever a point with the vegetable where it just let it go? Does it ever get, not tasty if you keep putting new shoots? I mean, okay.
Yeah. Well, think about basil. Think about sweet basil.
Oh.
You always keep flipping it back.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to flower. As soon as it flowers, it goes bitter.
Yeah. Then you're done. All the new ones are right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, there's an herb, and it's a good example. And absolutely, there's going to be stuff the plant's purpose is not to grow for us to eat it. The plant cares about growing to make flowers, to propagate and make seeds. Yeah. That's its purpose. And so it's going to do everything it can to get to that point, right? And usually by the time it hits that point, not always. I mean, in some of them we eat the seed, like the peas and that. But a lot of them, like lettuces, are just, they get that very vinegary, sappy, strong flavor when they're getting to the point where they want to go to seed, right? Right. So, I mean, and that's, I think some people call it a vegetable. I don't know the classification for lettuce. But lettuce will go to a point where you don't want to eat it. Broccoli absolutely will go to a point where you don't want to eat it. No. Kale gets those trunks on it like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're kale trees.
And then, yeah, I only like the young kale. I'll eat the other stuff if you freeze it and just take the full piece out. Like, don't even worry about it. Just take the stems out, freeze it, and when you take it out frozen, you break a section off and crumble it like that into your soup. It's great.
Yeah. We have a lot of kale. We have a lot of kale. I actually harvested some tonight when I was out there, and I snuck it in the meatloaf I made for the family. It was awesome because my husband's like, "Ooh, now this is good. This is really good." And he had no clue I put kale in it.
It's like zucchini. You hide zucchini in everything.
Oh, I like zucchini. Well,
I love zucchini, but not everyone does. My biggest trick is when I have like 20 gigantic zucchini, is I'll make up a big plate of zucchini brownies and the recipe, and I'll send the whole plate with my husband to his work with a recipe and say, if anybody wants a zucchini so they can make them, you let me know. And the next day all my zucchini are gone. Off they go.
Yeah, it'll be a few months before we can grow zucchini in the dome or the greenhouse, correct?
Yes, it's called summer squash for a reason. It needs more heat on its root and much more daylight. So I'm actually just going to do a quick summary of the specific plants. If anybody wanted some names of plants that they could grow, I'll do a quick little summary of that, and then I guess we'll just, if anybody has some questions, please type them in. Ask them. We'd love to answer what we can for you. And if not, you can always catch us after this on Twitter with the hash Growing North, or Bren also has the hash Garden Chat. And so we tend to follow those and answer them, or just message us directly. So lettuce, we started off talking about lettuce. You can grow that during this period of the year. It's stagnant. It's not dead, but it's just not going to put on much size, as you're noticing, Bren. It's kind of just sitting there as live, cute, not doing anything. So lettuces, spinach will do that as well. I dropped on a picture of some red kitten spinach that I have. What else will do that? Kale will, and cabbages are normal cabbages that we think of at the North American large head cabbages. You can grow them, and broccoli, but they're going to go dormant, kind of stagnant right now. Okay. Things like arugula is an herb. Some people call it lettuce. It's actually an herb. It's a bit more peppery, as we discussed. That grows amazing. I encourage anybody to try that one. Radishes, and as Bren mentioned, they grow slower. At this time, they still have enough sun. They are a root crop, so anything that's a beet or a radish takes a little bit longer in the winter, but they're still very tasty. So go right ahead and do that. Peas, you can grow them. Grow them for the shoot. I can't guarantee if they'll actually go into shells or not, but you can do that. And then you get into some Asian greens. The Asian greens are great performers because you're dealing with cold temperature, low light, and high humidity. These don't seem to care. So hot-gried turnip, there's 2 of them. They grow really well, and you can eat the green of them as well. So they're really tasty. Tatsoi, Tokyo Bacana, and a whole number of different pak choys. I showed some different pictures there. Herbs, Bren is talking about her parsley that she brought in, and I overwinter other herbs, even my rosemary, things like that. I overwinter them in my greenhouse. So those same plants are years old. I just keep clipping off of them, and they're perfectly healthy. And I mentioned a couple weird ones, like beet mash, which is also called corn salad. It grows great in the cold. It likes the cold. That's where it's supposed to grow. Looks like we're losing Scott, so I'm glad you were able to stop by, Scott. Thank you for coming by.
See you on Twitter.
And Claytonia is called miner's lettuce. It's almost like a microgreen. It looks like sprouts, really. It's very, very tasty. It's really sweet. Kind of got a crunch like a watercress. Very easy to grow. Very easy to grow. So that's another one. It just grows. I have it popping up everywhere in my greenhouse right now because it seeded itself last winter. Did not grow all summer. Did not grow all summer.
Huh.
Turn around. I have Claytonia everywhere. So it's another one like the beet mush that will not germinate at warm temperatures. And it just sits there and jumps on you as soon as
I wonder if that's something. Is that like, can that be used as a cover crop as well?
I don't know. Not here. My cover crop is snow.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So I don't have much experience with cover crops, simply for the fact that I can't really grow them very well. Other people here do have success with cover crops. I have to learn how to do them. I don't know, and I use mostly raised beds, so I haven't worried. Okay. And you can also grow Swiss chard. Any other plants that you have in a dormant stage, you can overwinter. So your peppers, Bren, keep them. Even if they stop growing, keep them because they'll come back to life in the spring. They're going to go perennial on you in the greenhouse. Okay, so they're a great one to keep as perennial. So that's the kind of summary of plants, a quick rundown. There's many more. Anything that's a cold crop will grow. Some of them will go kind of stasis during the darkest part of the year, but they're going to come back up and start putting on size and growing really, really well as spring comes. They're essentially getting an early season then. So I'm not sure if anyone had any other questions. I know Bren always has a ton of questions. I don't know where they all come from, but she always has a ton of questions. So that's great.
Well, that's how you learn.
It is. I love your questions. It's not a bad thing. I love your questions.
Right.
And we had some great feedback on the side.
One thing that was coming to mind, we can point out to remember is that there are many different varieties of most greens. Yes. Actually, I was going to point out, you forgot collard greens. Collard greens?
Yes, collard greens and mustard greens. Yes, absolutely.
Mine's doing great outside the dome. I dug up a couple of the collard greens, actually, and there's new shoots coming out of it. Looks good. Yeah. So
I would say try anything that is not a fruiting plant in your cold, low light greenhouse.
Okay, what do you mean by
fruiting plant? So not tomatoes. They might survive, but they probably won't develop a fruit. Beets and radishes are slow, but they will grow. But anything that is like lettuces, spinaches, collard greens, mustard greens, these Asian greens, you're kind of seeing like they're all leafy green, right? Right. Yeah, try all of that. Roots and leaf crops, exactly, Jay. Roots and leaf crops. Roots will grow slower. They'll probably be a little bit sweeter, more mild because they're not under the same stress, but they are going to grow slower. And leafy greens, try any kind of leafy green. And as Happy Dance Farm pointed out, there's many different varieties. Yeah. So if one isn't do your research, find one
300 different. That's amazing.
Yeah.
One thing too, when you were going through the list of things that you can grow, that you just went through, you said cabbages. Now, cabbage, obviously, I mean, like right now, I would not try growing cabbage from seed. I mean, you'd have to have had a starter plant and brought that in, right? Which I did. I do have cabbage, but I didn't start the seed. I had a nice garden center that gave me their leftovers, right?
Yeah. You can start it midwinter like now or early February. Okay. Seed start it indoors on a warm thing. Okay. And last year what I did is I actually, because it was -30 outside, I couldn't transplant them out to walk them out. I put them in a cooler, put them in like a beer cooler from inside and carried my little beer cooler out into the greenhouse, opened it up and transplanted them then. So they didn't get that frost damage or that cold shock.
Right. Yes.
But you can do that if you'd like to do a second crop of them or start them up. Anything that the temperatures of the greenhouse aren't the right rooting temperature. Okay. Like we said, microgreens, they need more heat to root them.
Sure.
Start them indoors, start them on a heat mat, put them into a cooler, something to protect them for the travel, and then just put them outside, transplant them, and you'll be fine.
I almost wonder, I have a couple extra like sheets of the solar wrap. I wonder if well, of course, if the sun's not out, it's not going to do anything, but I must wonder if I make another little cover for it inside the dome, if that would help heat it up even more so.
It might. It'll help retain the heat. Even more so. What you're going to end up, though, is you're going to end up every single time you put a barrier in the place, you block more light transmission. Okay? So you are going to take a percentage of light transmission of the actual photon energy away. Okay? But you can also take things like stones and put them around it, and you get a little bit of a microclimate because those stones are going to radiate a little bit of extra heat up and around it overnight. Yeah, so you won't block your light transmission, and you focus a little bit more on a microclimate. So the way to try it. So go right ahead, bury a whole pile of stones, and they'll be extra little in your soil
before they're covered with snow.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
How fun.
Okay, well, it looks like we're coming up on 10, so I guess I'm not seeing any other questions popping up, so I'm really, really, really glad to see people who stopped in tonight to watch and to participate. I'm going to give Bren a few more props here for asking 1,010 questions. I love the questions. I mean, otherwise I babble on, and I probably won't answer what people actually want to hear. So I want to know what you want to hear, because that's what you're here for. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to everybody for. Go ahead.
I think we should note too. You had noted as well. There's also some great publications out there if you're looking for ways to grow year round. And I know one of my favorites and your favorites as well is Nikki Jabaro. She's got awesome books. They always inspire me. Her what is it? The Growing Year Round.
Yeah, she's in a climate where it works with the
tunnels.
Oh, what do you call those?
Oh,
sorry. The tunnels, and also the I can't think of the name right now, but they're the small little heat boxes.
Yes. Oh darn it! See, it's late.
It's late. Normally I could pull that right off, but now it's.
Okay, help us out, guys. What is that?
Cold frame.
Yeah.
Cold frame.
Yes. Wait.
So, yeah, there's lots of publications out there. Good reminder, Bren. Search out some publications. Even if you're not growing yet in the winter, it's great winter growing. And if you are worried that you need a greenhouse, you don't need a greenhouse.
No.
You could grow indoors in your basement with a grow light.
Yeah. Another favorite of mine too is from the UK, Alice Fowler. I love watching her YouTube videos. I mean, she's in England, so it's kind of the same kind of cool temperatures in the spring that you'll get in the dome, kind of,
Yeah.
But she's got some great neat varieties of different greens and roots and all that stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, actually, the UK and Scotland are a really great resource as well for northern growing and season extension. Because they have very similar soils and similar temperatures, so they're a great resource.
Awesome.
Well, I think I'll just say thank you again for everyone who stopped in, and I'm probably gonna say goodbye for the night. But every single Thursday, 9 p.m., Bren and I are doing a Growing North chat on a different subject. We may be on BLAB, most likely on BLAB. It seems to be working very, very well. But if not, we might try some of them on Twitter. So
thank you. Thanks for joining.
Good night.